Welcome to the Mayor's Forum. My name is Matt Hayden, Deputy Township Administrator for the Township of Egg Harbor. I'm filling in for the Mayor this segment. My guest on the Mayor's Forum today is Carlos Rodriguez. Welcome, Carlos. President and CEO at Community Foodbank of New Jersey. Carlos is here today to talk about the Community Foodbank and all it does for the Township. How did the Community Foodbank come to start, Carlos?
Well, we started 40 years ago out of the back of our founders, station wagon.
Wow.
And since then, we've grown tremendously as the problem of hunger has grown across our state. And we're now one of the largest, we are the largest organization fighting hunger in New Jersey, and actually one of the largest in the entire country.
And where did that actually start, where you mentioned that?
It started in the back of the station wagon in Newark.
In Newark, and you've spread New Jersey wide.
We are reaching and touching just about 17 counties in New Jersey, including Atlantic, Cumberland, and Cape May.
That's great. So when you started that start that you had, who actually started it with the vehicle?
Well, it was our founder. Her name is Kathleen DiChiera, and
Okay.
She was just responding to a need that she saw in her community, in her immediate community. As she became more involved, she realized, as we know now, that hunger really exists in many parts, in all communities throughout our great state, and the response required a little bit more than just the back of a station wagon.
No doubt, and that's great to hear that it started that small scale to develop that basically statewide.
That's correct. Very social entrepreneur approach to dealing with what is a widespread problem.
That's great. So the Community Food Bank is here in the Township to help solve hunger, as you mentioned. Can you tell us about how you go about solving hunger?
So we're the primary provider of food and other services to a network of close to 1,000 programs, your local pantries, soup kitchens, and other not-for-profits. So we provide them with the food that they need in their local community to be able to reach our neighbors in need.
Okay, so it's not just the Community Food Bank. You're basically the hub for where the pantries come to get that assistance.
That's exactly right. So we are the only food bank in essence. There are many pantries, which are sometimes referred to as local food banks, but in fact they're the local pantries working directly with many of the families in every community.
So your facility in the Township is that hub for those pantries to actually come out and...
So that is one of our hubs,
Right.
but actually our facility here in our township in Egg Harbor is actually twofold. So we not only serve as a hub for 300 programs in Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland, but we also serve as a pantry for Egg Harbor and surrounding communities as well.
That's great. So you mentioned there's a number of programs offered by the Community Food Bank. Can you tell us a little bit more about those programs?
Absolutely. So we fight hunger where hunger exists, and we're learning more about how it exists and what can we do to intervene and change things around. So we're known for providing food to pantries and soup kitchens, but we also provide meals, prepared meals to kids cafe programs, and mostly in after-school settings. And during the summer, we partner with libraries, local camps to make sure that there's summer meals as well. And in addition to that, we're making sure that there's pantries, again, where we know there's a community in need. So you'll see pantries in schools now, and even pantries in partnership with health organizations like we have here in Atlantic with the Atlantic Care Partnership at the Plex.
Okay. When you say those areas, how do you go about identifying the areas of need?
So we're very plugged in with our local pantries. Many of them are churches or the local not-for-profits that are already established, and so we have constant communication to see where there's a shift. And then, of course, we use data, empirical data and research. We're constantly looking at poverty numbers. We're looking at trends in unemployment, and then, of course, food insecurity data that comes out yearly. So with the combination of both, we're making sure that resources are maintained where they're needed, and we're also making sure that we develop partnerships or deploying our mobile initiative, our mobile pantry, to where there's a growing need and perhaps not enough capacity within our partners or established partners.
So those local pantries really become your basically eyes on the street of what's going on, and you use your statistical data to then kind of develop the two to get the resources out in the community.
That's exactly right.
That's great.
So we're managing at a very high level, and yet we're still a charity.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, Carlos, do you have any examples of how these programs have helped township residents?
Well, here, again, we're reaching over 300 programs throughout the community. In Egg Harbor, and out of our Egg Harbor pantry alone, we're probably providing enough food for, just close to about 1 to 2 million meals a year.
Wow.
1 to 2 million meals a year in this pantry. When you look at what we're doing out of Egg Harbor for the entire South Jersey community, we're providing enough food and other resources for just over 12 million meals a year. So think about that. That's a lot of meals in a community this size.
That's really amazing. Yeah. So to be able to make that kind of impact, how do people get involved with the community food bank? With those numbers that you mentioned, you obviously have to have a large amount of volunteer staff to get that out.
Well, like any good thing, it's a team sport. And we definitely could not do what we do if it wasn't for our private, our individual, our government partners, all really coming around the proverbial table and allowing us to really fight hunger at the scale that it exists in our community. So volunteers, first and foremost, just out of Egg Harbor alone, there's about close to 50,000 volunteer hours a year that we depend on.
Wow.
Over plenty of visits, and they touch everything that we do, from sorting food at the facility to helping us with the pantry in Egg Harbor or mobile pantries throughout the communities.
Wow. And those volunteers, they basically come from the township, come from the county? Are they organizations, individual volunteers, or all of the above?
All of the above, all of the above. So we really welcome organizations who are really looking to create team engagement and show what their corporate responsibility philosophy is all about. We're welcomed in our facility to see and to help the local community. It's a great way to create team engagement. Individuals who are looking for volunteer opportunities are also welcomed, and so it really ranges the entire spectrum.
And you did mention the partners in that. Part of that's the volunteers, and I'm sure your staff is a big part of that as well.
Absolutely. We have a tremendous team of dedicated employees out of Egg Harbor and throughout the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, and they're dedicated to making sure that we do what we need to do to make sure everyone gets fed.
And that includes that outreach and incorporation of the local pantries.
Yes, we make sure that we deliver to our pantries, that we assist them, gauge their capacity needs, even support them in increasing their capacity as needed. You know, when you think about what Community Food Bank does here in South Jersey, we take something that's available but not within the reach of those who need it, and we make it available to those communities. So food distribution, if you think about what it takes to 13 million pounds of food, so we're taking something from where it exists and making sure it's placed where it's needed, and all along the way there's different levels of partnerships.
And those partnerships that you mentioned with the pantries, do you have a number of how many pantries are in the?
Yes, we have about 300 programs, and a little over 120 of them are pantries.
Oh, wow.
And then the rest could be low-income senior center, daycare centers, and other not-for-profits helping low-income families.
That's great. So you mentioned hosting some events, and what type of events typically go on at the Community Food Bank to help your organization?
So there are plenty of opportunities to get involved in the fight. We welcome donations of time, money, but we also welcome your voice. So there's a lot of different ways to create awareness, fundraisers to participate. It's a good way to learn about what we do and how the problem exists here. And we welcome the community to host fundraisers for us as well. It could be a local food drive, it could be the traditional food drive, or it could be a virtual food drive as well. It could be a campaign where you give, you provide donations in lieu of gifts for a special event. And of course, we host a number of different activities throughout Atlantic County and broader, where folks can actually participate, have a little fun, and help a great cause.
And with the event, if an organization or an individual wanted to have an event, they just contact you directly and that you have a process set up to do that?
Absolutely. We, of course, want to know when someone is using our good name and be able to provide any support that we can. So calling or visiting our website and finding out who to contact. Even some ideas for some events is always the best the first place to stop.
That's great. So, Carlos, the Community Food Bank has educational opportunities. Can you tell our audience about those?
Absolutely. So hunger is part of a broader problem in our society. We're not usually hungry or lacking food because it's not available. Not in New Jersey, certainly not in most of America. So it's many times financial access. What's keeping families from going to the store the way you and I do and getting the groceries that are available that best meet their family's needs. So that's our goal. We take care of that immediate need, but we want to make sure families get to that same place. So there's workforce development programs that, like our Food Service Training Academy, where it's an employment training. They learn life skills, they learn culinary skills, and then we work with them on job placements in that industry.
That's great. So you have that educational opportunity. Do you start at the school level to try to get information out to the kids to build it?
So for that particular program, it's for adults.
Okay.
And so we're working with adults who are looking for their first success in life, or maybe this is their second or third attempt at success, and we help them achieve it.
So you educate them at that level before they would come to actual pantry or to the food bank?
Well, actually, we might find some of these potential students and workers through our pantry network or through other partnerships throughout the community. Again, we're reaching a tremendous percentage of the population through our food, but we want to know more. Now that we provide food for the basic need, our approach is really evolving and developing into trying to understand why are you on this line and what can we do to help you get off this line.
And that goes back to your data that you use as you develop your programs.
That's exactly right.
That's great. The Community Food Bank must do a lot of business outreach. Can you tell us about how you do this and who participates in it?
Well, as I said earlier, fighting hunger is a team sport. And we talked about our volunteers and how important they are. Our business partners are as well. And not only for volunteer opportunities, but when you think of the food industry, they play a tremendous role in helping us meet the local need. So it starts really with our food industry partners, not just the retail stores, but farms and anywhere in the entire spectrum of where you can find food from the ground to the cupboard, where we can be able to rescue food and give it a meaningful purpose.
And when you have partners like that, it's such a vast scheme. How do you go about finding those?
We're looking for them, and sometimes they're looking for us at the same time.
Oh, all right.
And on food, it's a pretty symbiotic relationship. It kind of makes sense. But there's also more. There's opportunities for businesses to engage with us in fundraisers, just like an individual would. Different ways to sponsor and get their good corporate citizen name out there. Again, we reach a tremendous amount of people, and our events do touch a lot. And every dollar that's provided to Community Food Bank helps support up to 3 meals. So it's a great investment on top of a good cause.
That's great. The Community Food Bank obviously has volunteer opportunities. Can you tell us about what those opportunities are and what the volunteer should expect?
Well, a volunteer can expect a very fulfilling experience, and really volunteer opportunities are designed almost for whatever talent you bring to the table. So everything from sorting food to helping in our local pantries to helping us with clerical and administrative duties. There really is no shortage of potential opportunities.
And when you say volunteer opportunities, it sounds like it's not just time. It could be donating food, it could be donating money, and then you take those resources, and so it's really vast in what a volunteer could do.
It's vast, and all of it is needed. It's not an either or.
Carlos, we spoke a lot about the different programs and volunteer opportunities at the food bank. We didn't get into so much as who's actually hungry and why you have these programs. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
When we say it's our neighbor, it really is our neighbor that's in need throughout Atlantic County, throughout Cumberland, Cape May. More than half of the families that we're serving have at least one person working. So in many cases, it's working families. It's also seniors who retired with a different plan. Maybe the portfolio just fell out of the bottom during recent economic crisis. It's also disproportionately children. So 1 in 7 children in the state of New Jersey are food insecure, which means they, at any point throughout the year, they may not be able to provide food for themselves. In Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland, it's as high as 1 in 4. And so we have work to do, and many of our responses in South Jersey are focused to the unique need and demographic of the population.
And you use the data that we discussed to build that and then target your resources to those specific groups.
That's exactly right. We use the data that tells us how big the problem is and really helps quantify it, but it's those relationships in our local networks that really help us figure out the how we need to implement and start opening the doors to those communities and really inviting them to the proverbial table so we can feed them. It's behind closed doors for the most part, and so we want to get folks to not feel shame in their need, but rather see this as an opportunity to do what I think we all want to do, and certainly they want to do, which is get back on their feet and have as productive and meaningful life as they can.
And basically end hunger, so you're using your research to do that.
That's exactly right.
Carlos, the Community Food Bank is really Atlantic County's one-stop shop for hunger and how you fight it. How do you provide all that support? I know we talked about volunteers, but that's obviously a lot of support to try to end hunger.
That's exactly right. It's a lot of volunteer effort. You know, one of the things that we do very uniquely is that we have that pantry here in Egg Harbor. It's part of our facility, so we invite the community that's in need to be able to get their food there. And if we find that they're coming from a neighboring town and there's a local pantry there, then we'll happily refer them. We don't want our neighbors in need to have to walk disproportionately to get their food, so we're constantly looking to make those referrals.
And so you're basically developing relationships with, it sounds like, the individuals first and then looking for opportunities to bring the food to them.
That's exactly right.
Okay. The Community Food Bank does a lot of advocating and programs and policies that promote adequate nutrition for all people. How do you go about doing that?
Oh, there's so many different ways, right? So as we discussed earlier, hunger is a solvable problem. It's not that there isn't food available in our community, it's that access to the food that's a challenge. And it's a team sport. So we're the private response to hunger as a local charity with our network. We have businesses contributing to that as well. But we have to make sure that our government partners are just as strong as committed. The SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps, is a good example. That's a great way for many working families, seniors, to go in, apply for a program. Many don't know it's designed for them. And what it does actually allows them to go shop in our local markets and help actually the local economy out even further by being an economic engine and doing that. It's an important program. For every meal that we can provide, an estimated 12 meals is provided by someone who's on SNAP. And many times, again, it's not an either or. Many families do run out of their benefits by the end of the month. So we need to make sure that these programs are doing their part and we can complement it with whatever we can do.
And that's something where an individual will come into a pantry or into the township facility and you learn that and push them into a program where they would be eligible
We
for
help them with obviously making them aware that this is a solution for them, a potential solution for them, and we assist them in the application process. And it's a win-win for the county, for the state, and I believe for our federal government as well. It's many families that are on SNAP are not on the program long. Like so many of our working families, and it's an episodic problem. You fall on hard times and you need something to get you back on their feet. We welcome them in our pantry, but again, our goal is to make sure that families are shopping the way you and I shop.
That's great. Thank you, Carlos. For those that are in need of food, where can they go? So we mentioned a couple of the places. Can you?
Well, the best place to go, if you have access to a website or you have a friend that can give you access to a website, cfbnj.org, which I know we've been showing our website, can really help find where the local pantries are in your community. And we have a pantry finder there. It's called Help. And so you can find help for you. You can also learn about our other programs and see if there's something there that makes sense for you.
Is there if somebody doesn't have access to computer, is there a number they can call?
Absolutely. We can call our main line, and we'd be more than happy to assist you there as well.
All right, great. And the line's up now, so take advantage of that if you're interested. What are the requirements for helping those in need of food? So do you have requirements that when an individual comes to one of your pantries that they have to meet?
Absolutely. It's not an onerous program, but we want to make sure that you meet at least some key criteria for need. And so need can be, systemic. It could be you lost your job, or you could have had something tragically just recently happen that set you back. We meet families that something as basic as a car repair can set them back, and then it becomes a choice whether to fix the car to go to work or put food on the table. So we want to make sure we have a little understanding of what caused you to be in need, and we of course want to make sure that we know and can have a good way of verifying how many family members need food, so we can give you the appropriate amount.
Right. You just don't want somebody to take advantage of the program. You want somebody to have that need, as you mentioned.
There's a high level of integrity in our program. Right. This is one way, and again, our partners, and even when we go out in our mobile, it's local, so we get to know our neighbors, and neighbors know neighbors. So there's a built-in system of checks and balances in there.
That's great. So how many people do you help feed at the Community Food Bank? I know you mentioned some of the numbers with the amount of food.
So statewide, we're providing enough food for well over 40 million meals a year. That translates into about 50 million pounds of food, roughly. Wow. And we're touching the lives of nearly 1 million New Jerseyans. And here in Atlantic County and in South Jersey, we're touching more than 1 in 10 residents. So there are a lot of our neighbors, for many different reasons, as we've discussed, that are in need.
That's amazing that you help that many people. That's great. How do you transport, you mentioned the amount of food, how do you transport all that food to get it to whom it needs most?
So we have a fleet of trucks and drivers that really, you can find them at any given point on the turnpike, on the parkway, and in many of our local roads, delivering to our local pantries and soup kitchens, and also visiting our local stores and food manufacturers to pick up food as well. And so that's part of what we do. We pick it up where it's available and make sure that then we make sure it goes out to where it's needed the most in an equitable fashion.
Is that fleet based in a certain location, or is that fleet just spread out throughout the state to support each pantry?
It is mostly out of the two main hubs is where the fleet is based out of. And so out of Egg Harbor, we have a fleet of about 7 vehicles, trucks, that go out into the community and make sure that the food is moving, not warehoused.
Okay. So what are the long-term solutions you offer to help fight hunger? I know we talked, short-term. What are the long-term solutions to help?
So it starts depending on where you are in your life cycle. So for our children, we want to make sure that they are getting what they need to develop the right way and to be able to learn, so that they can break any cycle of poverty or need that they might be facing. So making sure those Kids Cafe are reaching those children in key communities, working with the Boys and Girls Club and other after-school programs to make sure those children are fed. It's hard to focus on homework in a homework workshop if you haven't had anything to eat since that first lunch bell, right, and if there's no prospects of food when you go home. So that's one of the ways. When school's out, making sure that during the summer meals are being provided as well, and that's a new initiative for us that's going to increase to well over, last year I think it was 80,000 meals during the summer alone that we provided, and that's poised to increase again this year. Later in life, we want to make sure that working families are connected with the right work supports or job training, as we mentioned, so that they can provide for themselves or build on their skill set. It's hard to focus on career development if, again, you're struggling to put food on the table. Basic needs come first, and that should always be a priority. And then, of course, across that entire life spectrum, and for our seniors as well, making sure that a need today doesn't manifest into a problem tomorrow. So what do I mean by that? Hunger is a health issue. So we're making sure that we can provide good, nutritious food. Over 25% of the food that we distribute is fresh produce, vegetables and fruits. And we want to make sure that, again, we're building on your nutritional needs. If you have a health condition, perhaps we can give you the food that can help you manage that.
So really it's educational opportunities, as we discussed earlier, from that youth level all the way to adult, as you're going through and trying to address the long-term issues. It's educating and making sure that the individuals are also healthy as they come to that long-term solution.
And nutritional education is something that is at the forefront. We don't want today's need, especially if there's going to be longer-term economic recovery, as opposed to like that one short-term economic crisis that a family might face. We want to make sure that that need for food doesn't compound into a health issue tomorrow, or doesn't compound an already existing health issue that you're managing.
That's great. So what types of successes have you seen at the Community Food Bank?
Well, so many successes, but I'm reminded of one that was shared with me recently. It's a pantry recipient that came to visit in our Harbor pantry. And she came in and she described her experience there as always pleasant. Always pleasant. Everyone always had a smile on her face. And she found us because her husband had passed away, so she was having a hard time feeding herself and her child. And so she visited us for a while. And then she stopped. And one of our team members bumped into her in her new job at the local Walmart, actually. And she was so excited to see one of our team members that she had seen while she was visiting the pantry. And she shared the story of how, because we were there when she needed it, she was able to take care of that basic need and focus on what's next. And now she went from being a neighbor in need to a neighbor helping neighbor, donating her time and helping us make sure that the next person is taken care of.
And that sounds like you're actually using that success story to help other people. So do you see that a lot, where you see a success and then you use that, and whether it's in that scenario or in others where you see something work and then use it to help other individuals?
That's exactly right. I think there's so many morals to that story. You know, don't be ashamed of receiving what you need when you need it. That's what we're here for. Everyone deserves a helping hand, and then you can pay that forward. And I think that's part of the story that we want to tell. And there is hope, as our neighbor found.
That's great. So, Carlos, if a company or resident is interested in donating, what is the best way to get in contact with the Community Food Bank to do that?
So a great way to find out not only how to donate and different ways to volunteer, whether a food drive or a virtual food drive, is to visit our website, cfbnj.org, Community Food Bank of New Jersey. And you can find not just what we're doing in the Southern Branch, but what's going on statewide.
That's great. So do you have corporate sponsors that help you do that with events and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunities for our corporate citizens to be engaged and participate, not just with volunteer opportunities and hosting local food drives or virtual food drives, but to help us be a part of events, sponsor events that help create awareness and engagement. And there's always something new going on, especially here in Atlantic County. We have plenty of opportunities to help a good cause and even have some fun while you're doing it.
That's great. And Carlos, just so we point out to the township residents, where are you located again, and where can you go to get the resources for the Community Food Bank?
So we're here in Egg Harbor Township, just right off of a Black Horse Pike, 6735 Black Horse Pike to be exact. And this is where we feed most of South Jersey from.
That's great. Well, thank you, Carlos, for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you again for being on the show today. The Community Food Bank provides a great resource to the community. If our viewers have a topic of discussion or a person you would like the mayor to interview on the Mayor's Forum, please contact the Township at 609-926-4044. Thank you for joining us today.